Welcome back to the Cumbie Show, where we tell like it is and we don't care how you feel. In this video, we're going to preview and predict the Georgia-Ole Miss game coming up this Saturday in Athens. It is a night game for the Bulldogs. And I got to be honest, this is probably one of the more difficult games or least confident games that I've kind of had all season long with my prediction. You know how I usually do. I come out right and say it who I'm taking to win if they're going to cover. Georgia is a 11.5 point favorite. I am going to take them to cover, or I'm going to take them to win, my bad. I don't know if I would take them to cover, and that's only because I'm not confident at how I think this game is going to break down and what's going to unfold. Mostly due to the fact that the type of team Ole Miss is and who they have at head coach. Lane Kiffin, I've always said I think he is more of a troll than he is a head coach. I think he has more fun being a troll than he does a head coach, and no matter how good he is, I will always think that. But looking into the numbers on this game, looking into the stats, Ole Miss is a good team. Their only loss coming against Alabama. They have a good win against LSU. They just beat Texas A&M last week. They did, have LSU put up like 50 points, but LSU and Jaden Daniels is a hell of an offense. So Ole Miss is no joke. They're a team that you have to come prepared, and I think that it is in favor of Georgia that it is a home game, and also think that it is a huge thing that it is a night game. This game starts at 7. Georgia and those fans do not get a lot of home SEC night games. Being a Dogs fan myself, obviously, going back, I think the last night game Georgia had before the season, before an SEC night game, before Kentucky, was in like 2021. It's been a long time. Georgia got no night games last year in 2022. So I think that bodes well for Georgia because I think that crowd is going to be rocking. I think they're going to be loud, and I think that's going to help. But going into the numbers of this game, like I said, the reason why I think I found this game to be the most challenging to predict, even though I am taking Georgia to win, Ole Miss has a really good offense in certain areas. Jackson Dart has looked really well. I've got his numbers here just to run through them. He's 160 of 244, 65.5 completion percentage. He's got 2,407 passing yards. He's got 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions, which is the exact number that Carson Beck has. Carson Beck is sitting at 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Carson Beck's got a little bit better completion rating. He's at 72.2% completion rating, and his yards on the season are a little bit better. He's sitting around 2,716 yards. Not around, he's sitting at that. So both quarterbacks looking good. Jackson Dart is good, but what Ole Miss does, what they kind of do well, is I think they're the leading SEC offense in explosive plays, which basically means anything over, I think they counted as anything over 20 yards. I think Ole Miss leads in the SEC with like 60-plus explosive plays on the season, which is really good. They are very poor at third down completion, and Ole Miss is also actually very poor at stopping teams on third down, and that's where Georgia thrives. Georgia thrives in third down stoppage, and also when it comes to offense, they are one of the best in the country when it comes down to third down conversion. This Georgia offense has extreme firepower. Even with Brock Bowers being out, they have not been slowed down. They are top 10 in scoring. I think they're number 3 in scoring, or they're number 9 in scoring offense. And yards per game, they're top 10, either 3rd or 9. I don't remember which one's which, but they're in both categories. They're top 10 in scoring points per game and yards gained per game on offense, where Ole Miss is giving up a lot of points this season. I think their scoring defense and yards per game defense is like in the 60s, very low. Not a good combination. In most of the categories that you look, Georgia is well ahead of Ole Miss in a lot of these things, even down to penalties. Ole Miss is I think they're the second most penalized team in the SEC, right behind Tennessee. So they're creating a lot of penalties. They're getting a lot of penalties per game. And Georgia doesn't commit many penalties. They are a very disciplined team. So all those factors kind of combined leads me to taking Georgia, especially with the fact that it is a home night game for the Dogs. And this is a very crucial game for Georgia. It's a crucial game for Ole Miss, obviously. But, I mean, this is a huge game for Georgia. If they lose this game, and if Tennessee beats Missouri, you're basically seeing a do-or-die game for Georgia on the road at Tennessee. So this is a huge game, and I think the Dogs are going to get up for this game, and I think they're going to play. We've seen Georgia this season. We know the kind of team they are. They get up for the teams that matter. For the teams that don't matter, they find a way to win. That just seems what they are this season. They're not a pure dominant team that's just going to run through everyone. So looking at the numbers, I kind of ran through the offensive statistics, the defensive statistics. Like I said, Georgia is top 10 offensive scoring yards per game. Ole Miss is like within the 60s in the country when it comes to stopping teams. They are one of the most penalized teams in the country and one of the most penalized teams in the SEC. And I just don't think that bodes well for Ole Miss. I think that if Ole Miss wants a shot to win this game, I think they're going to have to do what they do best, and I think that is explosive plays. Georgia is really good at not giving up explosive plays, but I think if Ole Miss wants any chance at going on the road and taking down the big bad dog in Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs, they're going to have to take some shots. They're going to have to take shots all night long. And they've got to connect on explosive plays. And I also, which is very crucial, is they have got to figure out a way to run the ball well. They haven't been bad in running the ball, but they also haven't been great. Their leading rusher in Judkins, he's got 169 carries for 793 yards. He's got 12 touchdowns. He's doing the majority of Ole Miss's rushing. But they're going to have to rely on him. They're going to have to rely on that run game to keep Georgia's defense honest. And they've also got to connect on they've got to come out swinging. They have got to basically throw haymaker after haymaker after haymaker on this Georgia defense. Because if that Georgia defense gets in a rhythm, and the way that Carson Beck has been playing, and the way that he's been confident and connecting with his receiver, even with Brock Bowers out, the best player in college football today, you can't convince me otherwise. Even with him out, they have not skipped a beat. They've actually even looked more explosive, which is wild. With Carson Beck getting in a groove, if you let this offense cook and you let this defense get in a rhythm, especially with the amount of penalties that Ole Miss tends to commit in a single game, things could pile up on Ole Miss, and it can get very ugly very quickly. That's why I think that this game can go a couple different ways. If Ole Miss is connecting, if Ole Miss can establish some sort of run game to keep Georgia's front seven honest and also connect on the explosive plays, I think Ole Miss can keep this game interesting. But if they can't get that run game going and they miss on a couple of explosive plays and Carson Beck and the Bulldogs on offense get in a rhythm, and that defense starts that with it being at home, that defense feeds off the crowd, and that offense cannot hear. You could look at a game that gets ugly pretty quickly. And there's also rumors. I don't know if this is true. I don't think it's true. But there's been rumors that Brock Bowers could return for this game. Kirby Smart in his press conference, I believe it was either earlier this morning or yesterday. I think it was actually yesterday. He came out and stated that Brock Bowers is doing fantastic. He's basically on track, on time. He's running. He's making small cuts. He's looking good. And there's been also some rumors from individuals that have watched practice that Brock Bowers looks like Brock Bowers. He's cutting hard. He's running fast. So I'm not sure. I personally don't think he returns. Obviously, I would love to see Brock Bowers return. This could potentially be his last home game for the Georgia Bulldogs. I don't think he comes back next year. So this is Georgia's last home game of the season. So this could be the last time that Carson Beck suits up between the hedges. I would love to see him back, but I also don't want him to rush it. I want him to be 100% healthy before he returns. And if he's not 100% healthy for this game this Saturday, as much as I want to see him, I don't want to see him. Like, I want him to take the time he needs. But he's a freak of an athlete. He's a freak of an individual. If anyone's to return that quick, it would be Brock Bowers. But that just adds another layer to the reason why I'm taking the Dogs is because even with all that, there's a possibility that he's returning. With it being a home game, especially a night game, I just have more faith and more trust in the Georgia side, and especially their coaching. I mean, the Georgia roster from top to bottom is better than Ole Miss, and the coaching for Georgia this season, I think this is one of Kirby's best coaching jobs of his entire career, head coaching jobs. That's kind of my thoughts, my feels on this game. Like I've said, I've kind of thought about this game ever since last Saturday. The last game was over. It's kind of been racking my brain. This game is very weird to me because of the type of team that Ole Miss is. They rely heavily on the explosive plays. And if they can connect, they're a team that if they get in a rhythm, if they get in a groove, they can put up some numbers. But can they put up 40-plus against Georgia? Can they put up 30-plus against Georgia on the road in Athens? I don't see it happening. Now, their defense is really good. They are one of the I think they're the top 3 in sacks for this defense for Ole Miss. They've got a really solid front seven, and they get after the quarterback. So can they find a way to get Carson Beck off rhythm, get him to the ground a couple of times, and get some stops on Georgia? We'll see. I don't think they do. I think that this crowd is a little bit too much for Ole Miss to handle. I think that Ole Miss continues to commit penalties and basically shoots themselves in the foot. I think they do get a couple of explosive plays against this Georgia defense early on. This Georgia defense seems to have a kryptonite where they just get scored on early on in the game. You might as well just give the opponent, any team that Georgia's playing, you might as well just go ahead and put 7 points on the board for them. Second they get the ball for their first drive, we'll just give you 7 points. You don't even got to play the drive. We'll just give you the 7 points, and you kick it off to us. That's basically how Georgia says. So can Ole Miss create some rhythm off that first drive, score on the first drive with some explosive plays, and keep the ball rolling and not shoot themselves in the foot? That's what they got to do in this game if they want a chance of beating the back-to-back national champions. I don't think they do. I think Georgia is solid on defense. I think they get after Jackson Dart. I think that they do allow some points and some explosive plays, but I think going late into the second half, Georgia kind of pulls away. They do what they do with a slow stranglehold, win in the trenches, and I think Carson Beck and this offense has another good game with or without Brock Bowers. I think our receivers show out, and I think they're coming to play ball because I know that this Georgia team knows how crucial this game is, and Kirby Smart's going to have them boys fired up. So that's my preview and prediction for the Georgia-Ole Miss game coming up this Saturday. I am taking Georgia to win. And if I had to take, now that I look at it, it's at 10.5 points. If I had to take Georgia against the spread, might as well go ahead and give me the spread with it being at home. If this was a road game, I would not take them to cover, but with it being at home, I will take them to cover. I think they find a way to get enough stops on this Ole Miss defense and limit the explosive plays, and I think they get a solid win at home. We'll see if they're number one. But other than that, over and out.